They say nature is beautiful, but it also hides secrets. Deep within the forests, along lonely mountain trails, and beneath the towering canopies, something watches, something lurks, and sometimes, people never make it back to tell the tale. Tonight, we bring you three terrifying true hiking horror stories from a remote peak in the western United States, a forbidden trail in the Pacific, and an isolated valley stretching between two states. It was the perfect autumn morning in September 2024, when Mark and his two best friends, Danny and Eric, set out for their long-awaited hiking trip in the deep wilderness of Montana. The trail they had chosen was known for its stunning views, steep inclines, and, though less advertised, its strange history. Locals whispered about people who had gone missing along the route over the years. Some were experienced hikers, others were campers who strayed too far from their sites. But the Forest Service dismissed the stories as accidents, falls, exposure, animal attacks. Mark wasn't one for ghost stories, and neither were his friends. They laughed at the rumors, packed their gear, and headed up the trail with nothing but excitement in the crisp autumn air filling their lungs. The first few hours were breathtaking. Towering pines stretched toward the sky, golden leaves crunched beneath their boots, and the smell of damp earth and pine resin filled the air. They took pictures, made jokes, and for the first time in months felt free. But then, things started to feel wrong. About 5 miles in, they reached a fork in the trail. The main path continued uphill, but a smaller, older-looking trail veered off to the left, disappearing into the dense woods. There was an old wooden sign nailed to a tree, barely legible from years of exposure. The only word they could make out was, "Keep." The rest of the sign was scratched out. "Keep going? Keep out?" Eric joked. "Looks like an adventure." Mark hesitated. He wasn't a superstitious guy, but something about the way the trail disappeared into the trees made his stomach twist. It was darker there, like the forest itself swallowed the sunlight. Danny, the thrill-seeker of the group, was already stepping onto the path. "Come on, let's check it out. If it sucks, we turn back." That was their first mistake. The deeper they went, the quieter the forest became. The wind had stopped. No birds, no rustling leaves, just their own footsteps and the occasional snap of a branch beneath their boots. "I don't like this," Mark muttered. "Dude, relax," Danny said. "It's just a branch cracked behind them." All three men froze. It wasn't just a small twig breaking. It was the sound of something big stepping on a thick branch. Slowly they turned around. Nothing. The trail behind them was empty. Just trees, stretching endlessly in every direction. "Probably just a deer," Eric whispered, but even he didn't sound convinced. They pressed on, their excitement now tainted with unease. After what felt like an eternity, they stumbled upon something they weren't expecting. A cabin. It was old, abandoned-looking, its wooden walls covered in moss and deep scratches. The door was slightly ajar, creaking softly as the wind finally picked up again. "Okay," Mark said, forcing a laugh. "That's enough exploring for me. Let's go back." But Danny was already stepping toward the porch. Just a quick look. Inside, the air was stale, thick with the smell of rot. Furniture was overturned, deep claw marks ran along the wooden walls, and an old yellowed newspaper lay on the floor. The headline read, "Local hiker still missing. Search called off." Eric picked it up, eyes scanning the date. 30 years ago. Then from the corner of the room, something moved. A single, slow creak of wood. Mark turned his flashlight toward the sound. A shadow in the back of the cabin shifting. A second later, the door slammed shut behind them. Panic set in instantly. "Go, go, go!" Eric shouted, shoving Danny toward the door. They yanked it open, bolting into the forest. Behind them, they heard it. Thump, thump, thump. Heavy footsteps. Fast. Too fast. Branches snapped, leaves scattered, and something large tore through the woods behind them. Mark didn't dare look back. He just ran. But the thing never slowed. It was getting closer. Then, just as Mark thought they were about to be overtaken, Danny screamed. Not a yell, not a shout. A blood-curdling, bone-chilling scream that echoed through the trees. Mark and Eric turned, just for a second. And in that second, Danny was gone. The forest swallowed him whole. No movement, no sound, just emptiness. Eric grabbed Mark's arm. Run! They sprinted. The trees opened up. They were back on the main trail, and everything went silent. They turned. Nothing was there. No shadow, no footsteps, no Danny. The next morning, Mark and Eric returned to town in stunned silence. Neither of them spoke about what had happened, because neither of them could explain it. It wasn't until later that day when Danny's parents called. Hey, is Danny still with you guys? His mother asked, her voice light, unsuspecting. Mark and Eric exchanged a glance, their stomachs dropping. Danny never made it out of the forest. They stammered, saying they thought he had gone ahead, maybe taken a different path down. But the truth was, they didn't know. One moment he was running beside them, the next, he wasn't. Search parties were sent out. Authorities combed the trails. Helicopters circled the area. They never found a single trace of him. No footprints, no gear, nothing. Danny's disappearance became just another name on the list of missing hikers. Another story whispered among locals. And Mark and Eric? They never set foot in those woods again. Because some trails lead to adventure. Others lead to something much, much worse, just like what they just experienced. There are places in the world where the silence is not peaceful, but suffocating. Places where the trees don't just stand still, they listen. Rabbit Valley, a vast, isolated stretch of land on the border of Colorado and Utah, is one such place. A lone camper, Nathan Carter, sought out this solitude, wanting to escape the noise of city life. He was an experienced outdoorsman, a veteran of countless hikes and camping trips. But in all his years of exploring the wilderness, he had never felt what he felt here. Nathan set up his tent in a small clearing, far from any trails. The sky was a dark canvas splattered with stars, and the silence stretched endlessly. He cooked a simple meal, drank some coffee, and turned in for the night. But something woke him, a soft crunch, footsteps, not an animal. He knew the sound of four-legged creatures moving through underbrush. This was different, slow, deliberate, human. Nathan held his breath, listening. His heart pounded as he reached for his flashlight. He hesitated, then unzipped the tent just an inch, enough to peek outside. Nothing, just the darkness. Yet Nathan didn't sleep for the rest of the night. At dawn, he emerged from his tent, trying to convince himself that it had been his imagination. But then he saw them. Footprints, barefoot, human, leading around his tent in a perfect circle. Nathan felt a chill run down his spine. He searched for more tracks, but the footprints vanished just a few feet away. No sign of where they had come from, no sign of where they had gone. He realized he wasn't alone last night. Nathan spent the entire day debating whether to leave. He wasn't scared, at least that's what he told himself. But he was uneasy. Night fell once more, and this time, he kept his fire going as long as possible. Then, in the middle of the night, a sound cut through the silence. Laughter, faint, just beyond the tree line. A woman's voice, software, breathless, as if she was mocking him. Nathan shot up in his sleeping bag, his breath frozen in his lungs. He turned on his flashlight and swept it around the trees. Nothing. Then, a whisper. Close. Are you awake? Nathan scrambled for his knife, fumbling to unzip his tent. He burst out, waving the flashlight wildly, expecting to see someone. Anyone. But there was nothing there, just the wind. Enough was enough. Nathan packed his things, but before leaving, he set up a trail camera on a nearby tree. He wanted proof, anything to explain what had happened. A week later, he returned for the camera. He took the SD card home, plugged it into his computer, and scrolled through the images. Most were of nothing but trees, branches swaying in the wind. Then at 3:14 a.m., a new image appeared. A woman, pale, hair covering her face, standing outside his tent. Her body was slightly blurred, as if she had moved too fast for the camera to fully capture. And in the final image, taken just before dawn, she was staring directly into the lens, smiling. Nathan never camped alone again, but the memory of Rabbit Valley haunted him. The whispers, the laughter, the footprints. It wasn't just his imagination. It couldn't be. A year later, he did something reckless. He went back. This time he was determined to find her. Nathan set up his tent in the exact same clearing. He placed motion sensors around the site, set up more trail cameras, and waited. Hours passed. Midnight came and went. Then, the laughter began. Software. Close. Too close. Nathan's body tensed. He gripped his flashlight and knife, forcing himself to step out of the tent. And there she was, standing at the edge of the trees. A woman, dressed in torn, tattered clothes. Her long, dark hair hung over her face, barefoot, her skin almost gray. Nathan's breath caught in his throat, his legs screaming for him to run. But something kept him there. He took a step forward. "Who are you?" he forced himself to ask. "What do you want?" The woman lifted her head, revealing hollow, dark eyes. Then in a voice that sent chills down his spine, she spoke. "I used to be like you." Nathan's grip on his knife tightened. "What happened to you?" A long pause, then she whispered, "I never left." Nathan's stomach dropped. She stepped closer, her bare feet making no sound on the forest floor. "He took me." Her voice trembled. "He takes anyone who stays too long." Nathan felt the cold sweat on his skin. "Who?" he whispered. The woman's expression twisted into something Nathan couldn't comprehend. "The thing that walks at dawn." A branch snapped behind him. Nathan spun around. Nothing. But the trees felt different. When he turned back, she was gone. The only thing left was a trail of footprints leading into the trees. Nathan didn't wait. He grabbed his bag and ran. He never spoke of what happened. Months later, Nathan was scrolling through the news when a headline stopped him cold. "Solo camper vanishes in Rabbit Valley." His heart pounded as he read. The missing camper was Daniel Reyes. His tent was found. His gear was untouched. But in the dirt surrounding his campsite, investigators discovered something strange. Barefoot human footprints, circling his tent and leading into the trees. Nathan now believes what he was told. The woman had told him the truth. He takes anyone who stays too long. And Daniel, who was missing from the news, had stayed too long. Nathan shut his laptop, his hands shaking. He knew with horrifying certainty that Daniel was gone. Just like her. Just like all the others. If you've made it this far, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Because up next, we have the most terrifying hiking story yet. One that will make you think twice before ever setting foot on a lonely trail again. The Stairway to Heaven, officially known as the Haiku Stairs, is a treacherous, forbidden hiking trail in Oahu, Hawaii. Rising over 3,900 steps along the Ko'olau mountain range, the ascent is known for its stunning views, but also for its danger. Steep inclines, unstable railings, and the ever-present risk of sudden weather changes. Hikers are drawn to the challenge, despite the strict warnings and hefty fines for trespassing. For Daniel "Danny" Sullivan, an 18-year-old thrill-seeker visiting from California, the risk made it even more tempting. It was supposed to be a quick, early-morning climb, just him, his camera, and the untouched beauty of the mountains. He was never seen again. Danny's last known photo was posted to his Instagram story at 5:47 a.m. It showed the winding stairway disappearing into a thick mist, clouds rolling in over the mountains like an endless sea. The caption read, "Top of the world, almost there." 30 minutes later, he sent a final text to his friend, Kayla. "Danny at 6:14 a.m. Dude, weirdest thing just happened. Thought I was alone up here, but I think someone else is on the trail. Took a pic. I'll show you later." That was the last message he ever sent. When Danny failed to return, search teams were dispatched. They scoured the trail, helicopters scanning the rugged cliffs, rescue teams trekking through the thick foliage. Nothing. No footprints. No torn clothing. No signs of a fall. Then one of the rescuers found his phone, sitting neatly on the trail's highest landing, as if it had been placed there on purpose. The phone was still on, battery at 23%. His last photo was open on the screen, a picture of the misty stairway, and in the background, barely visible through the fog, stood a figure. It wasn't a hiker. It wasn't human. The silhouette was tall, unnaturally thin, featureless, its body blending into the shadows like it was part of them. It had no face, no defining features, just a vague humanoid shape, and it was standing completely still, watching. The search team could offer no explanation. The case went cold. Most people moved on, but one man couldn't. Kin Jim, the search team member who found Danny's phone, became obsessed. Something about the photo, something about that figure, stayed with him. It felt wrong, unnatural, and the way the phone was placed so carefully, almost deliberately, sent a chill through him. He tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was just a trick of the mist, a shadow cast by the railing. Maybe Danny had fallen, his body lost in the dense jungle below. But Kin Jim wanted to be sure of what really happened. He began researching the stairway to heaven. Locals spoke in hushed tones about the trail, avoiding his questions. Some mentioned the night marchers, ancient spirits of Hawaiian warriors, walking sacred paths under the cover of darkness. Others told stories of the Shadow Man, a presence that lurks in the mist, appearing only to those who venture too far. Those who see it never return. Jim's nightmares got worse. Danny's last photo haunted him, because the more he looked at it, the more he was sure that the figure had moved. On October 4th, 2023, Kin Jim made a terrible decision. He climbed the stairway to heaven, alone. He told no one, except for one text to his younger brother, Luke. Kin Jim at 4:27 a.m. Going up. Need to see it for myself. I'll be careful. Luke replied at 4:29 a.m. Jim WTF? Dude, don't. Kin Jim at 4:32 a.m. I have to. That was his last message. When Kin Jim failed to return, his brother reported his missing. Another search party was formed. They combed the mountain, and at the highest point of the trail, they found something. His backpack left open, his flashlight, batteries still working, his phone placed neatly in the exact same spot where Danny's had been found. The phone was still recording, a video file 6 minutes long. The first 5 minutes showed nothing unusual, just mist, the wind howling, the rusted railings disappearing into the white void. Then, at 5:43 a.m., a whisper? Not in English, not in any language the experts could identify. Then, in the final seconds, the camera shakes violently, and just before the screen cuts to black, a hand appears, not human, long, thin, shadow-like, reaching for him. Kin Jim was never found. Some say he slipped and fell. Others believe he followed something into the mist and never came back. And some are convinced that Danny and Kin Jim never left the trail at all. They say if you climb the stairway to heaven alone, if you feel like something is watching you, you have two choices: turn around or keep climbing. And if you see a shadow in the fog, don't take a picture. Don't run, because once you see it, it's already too late. Danny's Instagram and Kin Jim's last video still exist online, locked in digital eternity. People still analyze the footage, still try to make sense of it, but always end up with nothing serious, nothing tangible. That's why some trails should never be walked alone, some figures should never be seen, and some mysteries are better left unsolved. Now that you have heard the 3 stories, we want to hear from you. Which story scared you the most? Which one will keep you awake tonight? And would you ever camp alone after hearing these stories? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. And before you go, don't forget to like this video if you love horror stories. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our next terrifying tale. Turn on notifications so you're the first to hear our next chilling upload. We'll see you in the next video. If you dare, sweet nightmares.